everybody. Welcome here to Tech Beat, where leaders learn, innovate, and grow. I am your host, Earl Foote, founder, CEO of Nexus IT. Nexus IT is a white glove outsourced IT support and cybersecurity services company based here in northern Utah and servicing a nationwide footprint. I've got a couple of great special guests with me today, a couple of dear friends of mine, Rob Poleki and Dustin Kenyon of Washie. We're going to come back around to those guys in just a minute. I think you're all going to really enjoy the conversation with these gentlemen today. A couple of quick announcements. We will try to take some questions throughout the hour or towards the end. So whatever platform you're joining us from, feel free to go ahead or make comments on those platforms. TechBeat is now on all major podcast platforms, so go subscribe. We would enjoy and appreciate your listenership and your viewership wherever you consume your podcast. And Slopes for hosting us here at their podcast studio, along with Dave and Connor, who are in studio, and our director of marketing, Mallory Lovestad, who are helping us produce this today. Quickly, upcoming episodes we have coming up next week. Ethan Parker and I are going to do a live stream podcast from Cryptopia. Giddy's got a cool new announcement, so we're going to do that at Cryptopia next week. On June 8th, Monty Deer, the CEO of Kizik Shoes, is going to be joining me. And throughout the rest of the summer, I've got Johnny Hanna, Derek Miner, and Greg Trimble from Lemonade Stand, Paul Shin, Andrea Guthrie, CSO at Kiln, Lance Allred, the first legally deaf NBA player who will be joining me, probably early fall. Lance is he's here in Utah, great guy, fantastic story, a guy who really leans into community and building and helping others. Anyways, keep an eye out for the announcements on those segments that'll be coming up in the next few months. Let's get to my guest of the hour. We're going to start off with Rob Poleki, and I'm going to read a little bit of their bios. Rob, being the original founder of Washie, will start over there. So, Rob, you may not know, but prior to becoming an entrepreneur, Rob was an elected official in Bannock County, Idaho. He worked in the government sector for over a decade, primarily in social services and district court. Rob decided to take a leap of faith with a toilet seat idea he had while taking his 4-year-old son to a public restroom. You'll have to tell us a little bit more about that later, Rob. After filing for a patent in 2005, a patent was issued by the USPTO in 2018. Rob decided to quit his job as an elected official, decided to quit or was forced to quit by Shark Tank. We can talk a little bit more about that. As an elected official to begin his entrepreneurial journey with his new company, Washie. Washie sells and creates innovative products for public restrooms with their feature product, the Washie toilet seat. And his co-founder and now CRO, Dustin Kenyon. Dustin is a seasoned sales and strategy exec that has grown up in Silicon Slopes. He was an early employee at Task Workfront and helped them grow from $2 million to $100 million in revenues. He started his consulting firm, Captain, in 2017, which is now partnered with over 15 startups, 3 of which have had successful acquisitions. Gentlemen, welcome to TechBeat. So glad to have you here.
Thanks, brother. Errol, it's good to be here. Excited to be on the show.
I'm so excited to spend this hour with you two. I've always enjoyed our time together that we've had in different scenarios, around town and stuff like that. And you're both guys that have infectious energy, guys who have learned a lot in your journeys as you've been working on, building a really cool, unconventional sort of, company, right? So, Rob, let's go. I want to, I want to tell the guests, the audience, a little bit about your backstories. You as people, you as founders and entrepreneurs, and how that all came about. So, let's go back to Rob Poleki, the kid.
the little fat kid playing rugby. Yeah. So, thanks again for having us on the show. Just a little bit about me. I'm an immigrant to this country, right? Born and raised in New Zealand, born in Auckland, South Auckland. So I came to the States when I was 12 years old. So yeah, my parents took a leap of faith to come to, the States, came with suitcases of clothes. That's it. Right.
Wow.
And as a teenager, grew up, go to high school, learned how to play football. I played rugby when I was a kid. And I grew up in Hawaii. So New Zealand and Hawaii. When I was 18, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to play football at Idaho State University. So took another leap of faith and moved by myself. Knew no one in Idaho. Hadn't even been to Pocatello, Idaho before, and just went for school. Right, it was going to be free school for me, and so graduated. Met my wife there. She was the dancer. I was the football player. We got married, had kids. We have 4 kids. I lived in Idaho for a bit, and from that time, I've been in government my whole life. Right. It's funny, as an immigrant to the country, my parents set out and said, "Hey, we're gonna work our butts off, and you're gonna go get this really good job." Just like all immigrants, right?
Right.
They come to the country and they want their children to have, become doctors. Or when I became an elected official, it was the jackpot for them, right? Oh, my son is the governor of Idaho. No, I'm not the governor. I'm not the governor. And they wanted me to have this steady job, be safe, right? And
Right.
that's kind of all immigrants to the country. But they taught me growing up to be a hustler. They taught me growing up to be an entrepreneur, that we're selling food, we're selling, doing anything to make ends meet. And so I was always taught that. I always had that in my blood. But I went the safe route and was an entrepreneur. I mean, was a elected official, was in government. And then, yeah, I decided to quit to go on the show Shark Tank. So that's kind of a little history about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to come back to the story of Washie, but since we're talking Shark Tank, a lot of people don't know this. I've heard you tell this story before, and I think it's absolutely fascinating. Tell the audience a little bit more about that. You go on Shark Tank, and in order to qualify, you have to quit your job
Right.
as an elected official with paycheck and benefits and the whole thing, so that you can go pitch Washie.
Right.
Tell us
Right.
about that.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, right? I'm an elected official at the time, and I drive from Boise to Las Vegas with a ugly toilet seat prototype to go on the show Shark Tank. And when I get there and fill out the application, one of the first questions is, "Are you running for elected office this year?" And I thought, "Oh, I just drove like 10 hours, and I'm running for elected office, and
Yeah.
to get my seat back." And I lied on the application. I was like, "No, I'm not doing it." I lied, right? I lied, and I made it through all the rounds to the end. And they went back to my application and they said, "Rob, you lied on your application, dude. You're elected. We know this, and you're all over the newspaper. People are seeing that you're going on Shark Tank. It's either you quit your job or you can't come on the show." And at that time, me just watching Shark Tank, I thought I was going to be this millionaire.
Of course.
Once I hit Shark
Overnight.
Tank, I'm going to be a millionaire, dude.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I got a patent. I spent like 20, 30 grand on this thing already. I need to go.
Yeah.
So I quit my job, and about 3-4 weeks before filming, they had gone to my set. We had going over my pitch. They cut me from the show. And I didn't even get to go on and see the shark. So it was the worst thing at the time, but the best thing that ever happened to me. I was able to quit my job, take the full leap of faith. And if I would have made a deal, they probably would have taken half of the company. I haven't even given away a quarter of the company yet.
Right.
So best thing for me right now, worst thing ever at the time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm sure your wife didn't think it was the best
Right,
thing ever.
right. I quit my job, salary,
Yeah.
full benefits. I cashed in my 401k for it.
Yeah.
I was all in. And so, yeah, it's things along the journey that have to happen, hard at the time.
Yeah.
Best thing that ever happened.
Those are the behind the scenes kind of things that a lot of people don't know about founders, and the sacrifices the families give and all that kind of stuff. Right. All right, my friend Dustin, let's chat a little bit about your journey. Where'd you start? Definitely tell us a little bit about music.
For sure.
Tell us about where you started and how you end up ultimately being a guy who's made a huge impact on a lot of startups around town. And how did this little alliance come together?
Yeah. Well, thanks for those kind words.
Yeah.
I think I'm not from a parent's influence perspective, not too dissimilar from Rob. So my family was all in LA, so we lived in Torrance. And my dad was a land acquisition specialist for the city of Anaheim. So big city employee, right-of-way projects, easements, and he spoke all over the country. And he, at one of the conferences that he was speaking at, ran into a few people from Utah County, of all places, Provo, Utah. And this is in the early 80s, that had just received a big grant. And they said, we don't know what we're going to do. We're going to develop all the apple orchards. We're going to have housing tracts. Would you come and consult? And in that experience, my dad left the comfort of government work, city work, and started his own consulting firm. And I was, 3 or 4 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved from LA to Orem, Utah, so he can start his entrepreneurial journey. And then I spent the rest of my elementary, junior high school years watching my parents really just be entrepreneurs. My dad's consulting firm helping cities use land acquisition funds. My mom was an incredibly talented artist and started her own freehand architectural design. So she would, the front of buildings, the front of houses, do that all by hand, all by paint. So I just grew up in that kind of ecosystem of, you do something that you're really good at, that you have an expertise, but you own your time, right? My parents were everywhere that I wanted them to be or needed them to be growing up. And that was just embedded in me of owning the clock and owning your own day is really important. I was really fortunate early in my career to just the right people at the right time, right? We've heard it in thousands of books. I don't think it was anything about me or my background. It was just, as I got my career started, really great friends at some phenomenal companies that just shaped and really shaped what I was doing as a young sales leader. So coming out of college, I worked for Vivint like probably 65% of Utah County over the last 20 years. Todd did a great job getting everybody to work for him, and helped with the go-to-market strategy of taking Vivint alarms and selling them from Sam's Clubs, right? So it was a new business unit, a new go-to-market. And I just was so passionate about getting to learn everything on our own. There was no pavement. You just had to go and learn it and build on all the partnerships.
Channel.
Loved it.
Yeah.
And then a dear friend, who you probably know well, Austin Miller, tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, I just left Omniture. I'm going to this really small startup called AtTask. There's a handful of folks and you should come. And I did. And over the course of about 8 years, AtTask was just a juggernaut. It was just an incredible experience, and grew through the organization, grew with responsibility and experience. And anyways, that was really kind of the journey. So I give Scott and Nate a lot of credit for allowing us young employees, as the company grew, to step up and grow into roles as opposed to hiring from outside, so we could have that experience.
Yeah.
It was huge. And then in 2017, got to walk away and have been consulting a lot of really awesome companies ever since. And then last year, I kept seeing this guy pop up on LinkedIn everywhere with this crazy energy and toilet seats of all things. And so I reached out to Rob.
It's sass, man.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. T-sass. And so I just reached out to him. I said, I got to take you to breakfast or lunch, like whatever's your favorite meal, let's go. But I want to hear your story. I want to know more about what you're doing. So that was kind of last May.
Cool. So you reached out to Rob.
Yeah.
All right. So about a year ago.
Yeah.
All right. So you didn't talk about music though. Tell us about music.
Yeah.
Your mom had artistic leanings already.
Yeah. So my mom was always in a singing group. It was her and one of her close friends, the back of a flatbed truck with a tape machine in the 80s and 90s singing country music. And my dad and his dad were both saxophone players and played in jazz bands, both in World War II and Vietnam respectively. And so I grew up with a lot of jazz and blues influence. So I played all through high school, got a scholarship to play jazz piano going into college. Did that for just under a year and then transferred to an international business degree.
Yeah. Wow.
So
from music to business.
That's right.
Those are like very different, left brain, right brain kind of activities. But those of us that have kind of that connection between the two, I think it's a potent connection,
Oh, I firmly believe some of the best salespeople are musicians.
Yeah.
The ability, especially if like from a jazz blues perspective, if you can listen to what is the chord progression and know where you're at and sit and then be able to go and improv on top of that.
Right.
Great salespeople know how to listen first really understand what's happening from a pain perspective, and then to make the colorful approach of what kind of improvisation of all my value props are going to land the best.
So you got to write a book on that. Sales is just 12-bar blues, you know?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I got to give my music plug. So my music plug, I'm a wannabe musician, but my dad was in a band, and then he used to lead the Sunday school in songs. So he'd be standing up there playing the guitar while he's making me sing in front, and I just hated it. But then
you're gonna sing a little gospel for us today, Rob? Come on now.
I grew up Catholic, so it's not even that cool. But as I try to play guitar or try to jump on the drums or bass, I put together. I used to work for a homeless veterans shelter, right, in Hawaii, and we put together a band, right, and we used to go and play at events, and during that time, I was like, I knew my place because the music, they were way better than me. So I was the guitarist that went to the bass that went to, okay, I'm just gonna put on the events, guys. You guys play. I'm just gonna put on the events. Yeah. So I got a little music in me, but not as good as this guy or you, Earl.
Well, the three of us got a riff, Like,
yeah.
That's kind of the way it goes, though. Like, if you can't cut it on guitar, you got to go to bass, right?
right.
If you can't cut it on bass, you got to produce the events.
Exactly.
That's not entirely true. There are some really talented bassists out there. Not myself, but there are some. We were just talking about Joe Dart, Wolfpack, guys like Les Claypool and Victor Wooten, and
so good.
Thundercat, right? Just like, in my opinion, like gods of the bass, the Flea, right? Yeah. Anyways, we're not here to talk about music, although we could we could riff on that all day long, right? Rob, let's talk about the story of Washie, right? So you're in a bathroom with your 4-year-old kid, right? And you're like,
yep,
this doesn't work. This is dysfunction, right?
Right.
So tell us about that.
I mean, so I've always been a guy with ideas. I have lists and lists of ideas, pages of them, and one of these ideas came to mind while I was sitting at my desk, as an elected official. I'm like, there's something more that I can do in my life rather than just sit here at a 9 to 5, right? And so the idea popped up. I was like, I remember a time when me and my kid were at the Salt Lake City airport. He starts doing the potty dance. We wait in line. It's like 5 minutes, and then stall opens up, and the guy before us just sprinkled, and just, it wasn't the pleasant, it's just like every public restroom experience everyone has, right? And so I grabbed some paper covers and I put them on there, and I try to lift my son up. He's 4 years old. He has to sit, and he starts kicking and screaming and doesn't want to sit down. And so I run over to the sink. It's packed. The bathroom is packed. I run over to the sink while he's still in the stall.
Yeah.
Grab some paper towels and soap. Run back over. Clean the seat for him. Clean the whole thing for him, so my son can sit down and take care of business, right? And I went from a screaming kid to now a kid that's smiling, taking a deuce. And I'm like, why is everything in this bathroom hands-free to eliminate germs, except the most important thing that you have to take down your pants and sit on, right? And so I was like, I need to come up with an idea, and that's where Washie came from.
There you go, man.
Yeah,
there you go. That's quite a kid, by the way. I mean, like most 4-year-old boys, they wouldn't even pay attention to that. Like,
right. Hey, he saw the seat cover. I put it on a seat cover, and then I tried to put him on, and it flushed down. Yeah. It went down, right? Right. And then I had to put another one on, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And then I tried to put him on there, and it just was a mess.
No way, Dad.
It was a mess. Yeah. So that's how the idea came, and then slowly I was like, there needs to be some kind of sanitizing dispenser inside of this seat so that everyone can just like sanitize it themselves. Or if you make a mess, clean up your own crap, right? Right?
Literally.
It's like literally.
Yeah.
And as we've gone and gotten more customers, like hospitals, there's a hospital in Idaho. The doctors are making everyone, all the nurses and everyone in the hospital, if you make a mess, clean up your own crap, be responsible.
Right.
So you can use it before and after.
Yeah, this will be the unconventional business podcast here. We're gonna talk about bodily functions,
right.
Unsightly, restroom scenes.
Oh, I got some stories. For you.
That's what I like hanging. I like hanging out with you two guys because it's not the same old boring sort of business chat,
Right,
But,
right.
to this day, like in our office building, that's all adult men, like and professional adult men,
Yeah.
you go to the restroom, you're like, what
Yeah.
happened here? Like,
When you close
I'm just gonna go to a different bathroom. Like, I'm
Right,
not even
right.
gonna mess with this. Yeah.
It's funny what people do. So like some of my posts on LinkedIn, you see me like in bathrooms all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As early on as the CEO of this company, the founder, all these titles, I'm over there changing out toilet seats, right?
Yeah.
For R&D, for putting. I got my first sale, like yes, now I have to change out 50 toilet seats. Like disgusting.
Yeah. Gross.
Just gross.
Yeah.
People when they
Can I
close
put
that
on 8
door,
gloves?
yeah,
Right.
right. When people close the door of a toilet stall, you don't know what the heck they're doing back there. Like what? And then some of the things that I've seen is just like people are just disgusting and are not clean in restrooms. And that's why I invented this thing, right? You can go in and sanitize the seat and be comfortable because you can't go home and use the restroom the bathroom all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So 2015, you have the idea. By 18, you get a patent, right?
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the early part of the journey, and then I want to talk to Dustin a little bit about where you guys are at now and how that's changed over the last year.
Right. So in 15, a patent attorney and I filed, and through 15 to 18 is where the R&D came in. Went over to China first time in my life. I actually asked the waiter in a Chinese restaurant in Pocatello, Idaho, to take me. I didn't even know him. He goes, "Yeah, we'll go." 2 weeks later, him and I are in China. He's my
Seriously.
translator. He's my bodyguard. We go over to
That's
China,
a good
and
guy, man.
yeah, 2 weeks. And this guy is, one of my really good friends now. My kids call him Uncle Kevin.
Yeah, right.
And so, really good relationship. But through the first 3 to 5 years, it's all about me being a government employee, now learning how to design to go through CAD, engineer, prototyping, all this stuff that I've never done before.
Yeah.
So I graduated from Idaho State with a social work degree, but I really graduated from Google and YouTube. Google and YouTube have everything you need to know. You don't even need a degree these days. Go on. I learned everything about design and CAD on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so go through those stages. And those were the really hard stages, right? When I was in government and going to conferences, I was caught taking toilet bowls in my hotel room. All the elected officials like, what in the heck is this guy doing, pushing a toilet bowl in his room? I was in there measuring, right? While everybody was out having drinks and eating dinner, I was in my hotel room measuring toilet seats and toilet bowls and figuring out universal
hobby, my
hinges,
friend.
figuring out how this thing is gonna work, right? And so, yeah, that's the story of the founder. Is all the crap I had to do to get to this point. I mean, it's unbelievable stuff, man. But had to do it. So 15 through 18 R&D, even from 18 to 21, we went through COVID, had to shut down a year, 2020 and 2021. I mean, it's just been a journey, man. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the stuff that most people don't see, right? Like the amount of effort and learning, and adaptation and change that a founder goes through in the process. Dustin and I were having a little offline discussion, prior to the podcast about that. I want you to talk a little bit about that, Dustin, but talk about where. Let's chat first about where you guys are at now. What's happened over the last year. Bringing you two together to kind of you guys are pretty dynamic guys, pretty smart guys that are taking this idea and getting some momentum, getting some traction with it. So tell us a little bit about that, and then let's talk a little bit about some of those misconceptions of the founder's journey, and the things you got to really know.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning. One of the main catalysts for me, as Rob and I kind of spent last summer dating, right? Just working through some of his business models. One of the things that really intrigued me, this is like the top 3 reasons why I'm at Washie. First is Rob.
Yeah.
Right. Like you said, anybody that's met him, He's by far the most infectious human being I've ever spent time with.
Oh, thanks, guys.
That's how you get it.
There you go.
You get a waiter at a Chinese restaurant and take you to China 2 weeks later.
Right. Hey, before you bring me my bill, will you take me to China? I'm building a company. Like, who does that?
Right.
And I don't mean just like shooting the bull and just having a good time and chatting. The infectious part, as we would get into the business side, is I've learned more about his wife and his kids and the amount of sacrifices and the amount of battle scars that are so deep.
Yeah.
And to still be out there happy, smiling, grinding, thrilled to be living his dream. For me, that was like, okay, products come and go, but people are what make companies successful.
Yeah.
And as a consultant, that's how I work, is I boutique, try and help 4 or 5. And when I find one that's worth going all in on, then let's strike a deal and let's find a way that we can really grow together. And I had 4 or 5 really awesome consulting clients at the time. And it was just one of those things where I would wake up in the middle of the night.
You stole him, by the way. We were just exploring. We were just exploring a consulting gig, you know.
Right.
Dustin's like, "Sorry, I'm getting married," and we're like, "Oh man."
And just having conversations with my wife Camille, and it was just that there's some really cool things out there, including Nexus.
Yeah.
And I love Earl, but there's something different about him.
Yeah.
There's something about Rob that I just want to run into. I want to be at the front of the line, just swinging swords. And I just want to, you know what I mean? I just want to go to battle with him. So that was number 1. Number 2, I had just come off of, 15 years of a really fortunate, blessed SaaS career in software. And I was ready for a different education. I was ready for a different Rubik's Cube, a different challenge, a different set of mental skills that I wanted to grow, right? And so popping the hood and getting into the Washie business of true cogs and 8-week delays from China and all the things that come through shipping logistics and an actual piece of hardware just fascinated me.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get into a different type of business that would allow me to grow. And the third was the mission. It's so simple, right? My wife loves it. For 20 years, people ask, well, what does Dustin do? And, Camille's just like, it's technology and software. And now people, what does Dustin do? He sells toilet seats.
Yeah.
That's it. And she loves it because it's so simple. But the feedback that we get in LinkedIn direct messages, text messages from moms with young kids while still at the restroom, thanking Rob, that this is so simple, it's so needed, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
That mission aspect for me was huge. So anyways, before I went any further, I just wanted to make sure. So my transition was really because of those 3 things. Now, with that said, that's where the difficulties lie, right? A COGS business is really hard.
Yeah.
Shipping and manufacturing and design, and we're going through it all again with our, potential new products moving forward, and it's a grind. But so what we've kind of seen in the last year is some really cool things, and we've had some, we call them miracles, because there's just some things you go, this feels like it. We were talking before we went live about the day-to-day grind of a founder in a startup is emotionally the worst, hardest thing ever.
Yeah.
Because you wake up every morning with problems you have to solve, right? It's like you're crawling out of the grave just to get to lunchtime, and then hopefully in the afternoon you find some sunshine and some good things that you get done.
Right.
So over the last year, we've had some really great moments at the right times. One of those being Delta Sky Club, right? The story of how that came to be, that's really our premier pinnacle customer right now. It was amazing. We had a customer or a follower tag the regional director for Sky Club in a really horrific negative bathroom experience, and literally on social media shamed him. And we're not a shame business. That's not our go-to-market sales strategy. But it was compelling enough that this director, who we had never met, reached out to Rob and said, I wasn't aware of your product. I wasn't aware of what you guys do. Can we set up a call? And of course, we were super stoked.
Yeah, right.
And so we did that. And
it's a nice inbound lead right there.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with a little billion-dollar company knocking on your door saying, hey, we're interested in your toilets.
Yeah.
And like most new sales calls. Really great call. Okay, now where are they at? The follow-up's key.
Yeah.
And the guy's elusive. He's running all the Sky Clubs for West Coast. He's got his hair's on fire half the time.
Big company, yeah.
Right. And
long
so,
sales process.
that's right.
Yeah.
And so we find ourselves getting a quick little pilot in the San Diego airport. So we're high-fiving and it's exciting, but there's only 3 seats there. So it's not like, okay, demonstrative to the bottom line.
Sure.
And so Rob and I are 2 or 3 weeks later, and we're having one of those founder conversations of like, what else can we do to get this guy to respond? Do we go above him? Do we try, we're doing all the LinkedIn games of who else is on the leadership team with him. And Rob was traveling that week.
Corner him in the stall. That's what.
Let me talk to you.
Hey man, is that seat clean?
And this doesn't help from a business strategy perspective, right? So for the listeners that are like, okay, what can we do for our business? This won't apply. This is just miracle category. But Rob was traveling that week. I was staying home in the home office, grinding through LinkedIn and finding some other ways to really navigate the Sky Club ecosystem. And on his way back, Rob's traveling through Chicago and goes in the club because he's a member. And they were having kind of a red ribbon reopening, ribbon cutting type thing. And of all people who's there running the event is our contact that we can't find, that we can't get a hold of, that doesn't return calls and emails and all of those things. And Rob's now face to face.
Man, that's not serendipity,
right?
Whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
That's a really good startup afternoon, right? It's like
right?
That's some sunshine.
Yeah.
Got feedback. What's going on? We learned, confirmed. Yeah, his hair's on fire. He's opening it was like 6 new clubs over the next 2 months. But committed to next steps. We got next steps. Kind of went elusive, and coming up around December, we really wanted to be in Salt Lake, right? It's our home court advantage. It's a beautiful club. It's huge. It would be an awesome size account from a revenue perspective. Wasn't responding. And so I just told Rob, I'm like, sometimes with the busiest folks, skipping through the middle of the funnel and just going to the assumptive close is a favor to them.
Yep.
Like, they don't have time for the back and forth. Let's just get business done.
Yeah.
And so we reached out and we just said, hey, we know you're busy. We had the context of your conversation in Chicago. Let us know. We've got this week window of when we can install. Does this work for you and your team? If yes, then we'll get scheduled and let's rock.
Yeah.
And he responded within like 18 minutes. He's like, yeah, Dustin, that sounds great. We'll talk to the team and make sure they're available to have you guys there. That was it.
Fantastic.
And so it was just one of those, finding the right partners at the right time isn't always what we can do. Sometimes you just have to, thank goodness, have some good fortune, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway, so over the last year, it's really fine tuning the who, right? There's a lot of toilet seats that a Washie seat could go on. It's what are the right seats for us as a small company right now with limited inventory? How do we maximize our seats to have the most throughput revenue on our chemical cartridges, as opposed to lots of seats going out and sitting quiet?
Yeah.
Right? And then we have no income and we have no ability to reorder seats to go somewhere else. And so we've really kind of been playing a little bit of a prestige, saying no more often unless they really have the traffic volume that gets us the revenue per seat.
Well, that's the sophistication of the strategy that you bring to the table here. Having been worked in the SaaS model for so long, and SaaS and IT cybersecurity services, we live by recurring revenue, right? That's our model. So selling one-off toilet seats isn't going to get it done. Like that's a challenging proposition to sell enough of those every single month, to go, okay, we have a really great business. If you get that recurring revenue off of your consumable product, right? Then so I mean, it's cool to see that evolution of where we're going to focus. So can I ask, what's the high volume sort of customers that you're looking for?
Yeah. So we developed our own KPIs, right? So ARPS, annual revenue per seat, sounds like software, but it's toilet seat.
Yeah.
If we can't hit 500 in the first year, then we try not to place the seat.
Yeah.
So simple model, we sell retail the smart seat for 200, and then every cartridge, which is 2,000 uses or pumps of the solution, is a $50 reorder per cartridge.
Okay.
So if you're ordering a cartridge per month, that's your roughly 600. That would be awesome. So we average between 30 and 40, 45 days with Delta. So it's a very strong model.
Okay. All right.
And now it's about scaling. How many of those can we get?
Right. So what other type of venues, let's call them venues, right? Are you focusing on other than just sky clubs, right?
Yeah. So we have a 3-pronged approach. So airports, gas stations, and what we call entertainment, but theme parks or arenas.
Oh yeah.
And really, most of my time is spent on the first two. So trying to expand into other airports. We're waiting on the green light. We've been through a rigorous 45, 60-day application process with DFW for a pilot in their busiest terminal. So we're fingers, toes crossed every day for the green light on that. And then gas stations is phenomenal.
Yep.
Because they have the high traffic per day head count, but they actually have less seats. And so the throughput per seat is actually really, really great.
There you go. Yeah.
And so we just launched in the last couple of weeks our first true partnership with an entity which we can't claim because of NDAs, but they are a Washie reseller, installer, and monthly servicer. They go in and with our smart app, we'll check the seats and swap the cartridges for us. So this is our first service infrastructure play where we don't have to do the servicing side ourselves.
That's perfect.
It's huge.
That's fantastic.
Let me chime in. For the viewers that don't even know about our product.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, "Hey, this guy's selling toilet seats. Dustin's selling toilet seats on LinkedIn." Yeah, we're a smart toilet seat, right? We have an app that connects to the seat that notifies maintenance when the cartridge is low and the battery is low, right? We sell toilet seats, but we're really in the chemical business.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what our consumable is. There's a canister or cartridge of soap or sanitizer that we put into the seat, and that's how we make our money. So we don't have to sell millions or hundreds of thousands of toilet seats. We have to sell hundreds of thousands of cartridges of chemical, and how we do that is we place them in high traffic restrooms. So early on, like we were putting them in Vivint Arena and Salt Palace is a classic case of, what is your TAM, right? What industries are you really going after? And because we thought that those were huge buildings and facilities, we thought that we were going to kill it there. But those places only have events like on Tuesdays and Fridays, and the rest of the time they're empty. And so when I first put in our seats there, thinking that we were going to sell tons of cartridges, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening in hospitals either.
High volume at halftime, but not necessarily all week long. Yeah.
Right. And then I figured out, okay, gas stations have like 5 to 10 seats in there. Whoop-de-doo, right? But there's people there every single day on I-15 stopping to use the restroom.
Yeah, so we see the story on the seat when we go to use them.
Right, and the most disgusting. And why would a gas station, buy our seats? They're into improving their customer experience. Everyone knows in this region they need to stop at a Maverick if they need to use the restroom. Maverick has done a great job with their bathrooms. What does that do for their brand, right? It says that they're clean, but it also says that moms should stop here while the dad fills up on gas and mom goes and uses the restroom with their kids and buy snacks. So Maverick's making money.
Yeah.
That cleaner restrooms equal increased revenue.
More revenue.
Airports are the same way, right? There's a study that says if you have cleaner restrooms in airports, your travelers will spend up to 15% more in the airport. The airport is in the rental business, right? They take, they have restaurants there, and they take a percentage of their revenue. So they want people to spend money. So yeah, it's all about cleaner restrooms equal increased revenue, and that's kind of who we're selling to.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
By the way, we got some fantastic comments. I wasn't really watching them, but lots of like TMIs,
Let's hear it.
This is my kind of podcast, number one in the number two business.
That's right.
Some fun stuff coming across. This is definitely not the most conventional podcast I've done, but
it's gonna be the best.
Not the most boring.
It's gonna be
yeah, for sure. With you two on here, of course. All right. Well, it's cool to see what you guys are up to, right? And how you're building. I mean, you're solving a real problem that everybody knows is a real problem, and it's kind of like, why has this not been solved before, right? There are countries, even countries that you would. I want to be careful about how I say this, but that you would think we in the U.S. would have a better solution than some of those countries that have kind of solved this problem to some extent, right?
Mm.
And we still haven't. And it's like, why is this still a problem, in 2023? So that's cool. But we got about 20 minutes left, guys. And I really want to just kind of hone in on more on, the founder journey, more on the grind of building a business, the grind of building a startup, and the mindset behind that, the behavior behind it, right? And the lessons, because I think there's so much there. And most of our audience, of course, are founders or leaders, that are looking to hack their journeys. So I know you guys have learned some pretty important things in that process, right? So Rob, maybe let's start with you. You had to have a lot of faith to really start this journey, especially to quit your job as an elected official, so that you could go on Shark Tank, right? And then get cut from Shark Tank. Like, that was a cold-hearted move. Like, man,
Right.
that's tough, right? Tell us a little bit more about those early days and like what that was for you. I'm sure there was an emotional roller coaster, and what are some of the things you went through and some of the things you learned?
Yeah. Shark Tank's going to hear from me when I exit, and Shark Tank made me millions. I didn't even make the show. That's the title of the book. But
there you go.
There's so many lessons to be learned. My tagline that I post on LinkedIn is "Can't stop, won't stop," because there is no plan B for me, right? There's only plan A, and Washie is going to work, right? Washie has opened so many doors for me already that when it's time to exit and it's time to move on, that Rob has the other opportunities. But early on, I started with my wife. I made sure that my wife was on board, right?
Yeah.
It was a partnership. I knew that in the first year or two, we would be counting on our businesses that she ran to pay for the bills. So once I got the green light from her, and she was like, just take a risk. I've always been the guy that's been working 9 to 5, long hours, trying to feed my family, trying to get my family a home, cars, and all those things. And she gave me the green light and said, just go take a risk on this, right?
Follow your dream.
I was like, great, I'm gonna go make some toasties, baby. And so that was the first step for me, making sure that our partnership was okay, and that I got the green light from my.
It's important, by the way.
wife.
If you have a partner, life partner, whatever sort it might be, right?
Yeah.
Like, getting the sign off of that life partner to go be a founder, to go build something, because it's a commitment. You're married to the
Right.
business. You got to carry. I mean, if you're married to your life partner, you got to carry 2 marriages at once.
Right.
Yeah.
And like DK said in the beginning, my family made a lot of sacrifices for me to follow this dream, and I owe them big time. My kids, I owe my kids. I owe my wife. I owe my parents, my family that has supported me. All the early investors. I have the weight. It's not really weight, but I do have them, in the background. Every time I'm thinking about Washie and grinding, I have them in my mind. I got to make this work for the people that have supported me over the past 5-7 years. I've been doing this. And so that's been a motivation for me. So early on, going through the process, there definitely some tough times. I've accomplished a ton of things in my life, right? I was elected to office at a young age. I was 31 at the time, right? I was the youngest elected official in Idaho. I was the only brown guy in Idaho, right? Elected official.
There's something about your charisma,
right?
Yeah.
They liked me for some reason,
Yeah.
but and that was a huge accomplishment. I had beat someone that had been running in office forever, and so I even early on in career, I was a film director, and I won short film. I've done a lot of things in my life with sports or football, But this journey has been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. The hardest. And when I first got when I received my first patent in 2018, I was like, what the heck? I opened the package. I was like, I read it and it said, you are official inventor. And that just hit me some
Yeah.
different way. I couldn't believe that, I never grew up thinking I was ever going to become an inventor,
Yeah.
right? Like, what does that even mean? I go down in U.S. history from USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office. My name is on a patent. I made something original. That's crazy. And
That's
so,
fantastic. You should just retire now.
yeah, you're right. I was like, I'm going to be rich.
You're done.
And I'm going to be rich. And that is not the case. There's steps to business. There's steps to this, how this grows. And the early on solving the problem, making the product, becoming the inventor, all of that stuff is done now. The second part of business is here, of ramping, of selling, of building the business, building teams, bringing on Dustin. That side of the business is here. So still learning and still trying to grind.
Yep.
Still grinding every day. Imagine a 300-pound, 6'2" guy in a bathroom sitting on the ground and just almost crying because crap ain't going right.
Yeah.
It's just not going right. There were issues with the seats in the beginning, and I installed all these seats and I had to take them out, and customers weren't happy. Those are the stories that no one knows.
Yeah.
And I would just sit in some restrooms sometimes, just like, what am I doing? I could have retired as an elected official and had the life.
Right.
Right. I had everything I wanted. A huge house, right? Big cars.
But
And
could you live with yourself?
but I couldn't live with myself.
Yeah.
I knew there was something else. I know that this is hard now, but it's just building me, building my character, building me as a business person, and that's all it is. It's hard, but I'm learning from it, and I'm just grinding. Can't stop, won't stop.
I think that's like so many founders that really like you get addicted to the challenge,
Mm.
you get addicted to solving problems and to growing. Like, you get addicted to like, I'm going to level up every damn day. There's something new to deal with, and I'm gonna find something new. All right, so Dustin, let's talk a little bit. You've got a pretty good pedigree behind you. Of some good career in sales, and creating sales organizations and sales channels and all that kind of stuff, right? Some cool stuff. And by the way, like, how many founders has Vivint launched? From doing summer alarm system sales, right? How many founders have come out of that? Because that alone is a grind. Like, you got to really build a winner's mentality to do that, and I think it translates really well into having the mindset of being a founder. But what's been different about this for you? What's been better? What's been harder? What have you learned in the process?
Yeah, awesome question. So a couple of things. The last couple startups that I've been part of, so in my consulting approach of when I find one and then we join forces and I take a chunk of equity, they didn't raise capital, right? So I would say one of the first unique things that Rob and I are going through, everything that he just so heartfelt and beautifully expressed about the dynamics of being all the hats, the dad, the husband, the son, and grinding the day-to-day business. And then as we go through all the grinding on the business, we still have the need to, we're in the middle of raising our seed round.
Yep.
Which is a full-time job in of itself. And so
I hope there are investors listening here.
That's right. We're about half subscribed, half
right.
funded. So let's go.
Yeah.
But that dynamic has been new for me, right? I've always been afforded the luxury as the hired gun of the infrastructure and the runway sufficient and the investment sufficient to grow revenues.
Yeah.
That game is significantly different than only throughput on sales and the runway left with a very limited capital. One of the things that's amazing about what Rob's done, he mentioned it earlier, is he still owns the majority of the cap table and has been doing this for a long time and has been a phenomenal steward for his investors.
Yeah.
Now our investors. And as we continue to move forward with that, but raising capital right now is really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when we're not a SaaS business.
Yeah. Product.
Especially when we have cost burden on every unit that we want to sell. It's a very different model. So for me, that's new. And I love it, and I love the grind. But it's really hard, right? And I have moments where, Rob and I are on the phone or whatever time of day or night, and it's, these are there's some vulnerability and exposure when those niceties of corporate or of consulting are stripped away, right? It's a humbling position at times to not just have a magic wand. When your kind words express that, my career's had some really great magic wand moments. The universe doesn't care about that at this startup. You know what I mean? It doesn't carry over and play. So that's been, I think the first thing is just, I have to bring the best. He has to bring his best in all of our categories, or we don't keep the momentum.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've really appreciated getting to do that, the difficulty of it, but more importantly, in rowing that small boat, to know who's on the other side of the boat with me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's bigger and he rows harder. That's it's awesome. And then I think the second thing I would say is I love getting to be exposed in the patent process and everything that Rob's put in place. He's very humble about that, but there's 3 patents that are now issued.
Yeah.
2 utility, 1 design. We have a family of patents sitting behind that with 3 or 4 still to come.
Cool.
Probably one of my favorite moments of battling with Rob a few weeks ago, we flew out to Wisconsin for a strategic meeting with a potential acquiring company. They're one of our strategics. And we met with their entire executive team. And because of some new products that we want to launch, we had to really do some due diligence on patents of what we own, what they own, and working through everything with our patent attorney. So Rob and I share rooms when we travel because it's cheaper.
Of course.
We've got to grind it out.
What you got to do.
And we were on Zoom phone calls with our patent attorney till about 4 a.m. leading into our meetings at 8 a.m. with this company to ensure we had it. And it literally was like midnight watch. Like Rob was up with him for an hour and a half while I was sleeping. And then he turned his phone off, and then I turned my back on while he's doing red lines. And then he would call me and say, okay, DK, I need you guys to go through all of this. And it was just a back and forth battle through the night to make sure that we could have the confidence going into this meeting that we can do, and the products we're bringing to market are ours.
Yeah.
From a claims perspective, which we got.
Sure.
Right. And so that kind of experience hasn't happened for me yet.
Yeah.
And so that's really been
this is all new. Physical product is so different from software. Yeah.
And at the time it's exciting and it sucks and you're in the grind, but that's, I echo what Rob said. Life's about progression and learning and growing. And so Rob's afforded me a lot of that privilege.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the movie that comes out when we're starting the movie, the comedy? We're up till 4 o'clock talking about toilet seats.
I know who's going to play Rob. It's going to be The Rock.
The Rock. That's right. That's right.
I was going to say, if my wife has a choice, Ryan Gosling would play me.
Yeah, gotta have better looking guy.
Yeah,
That's right. Quick upgrade.
So we got about 5 minutes left, gentlemen. This has been fantastic. I've had a lot of fun. Thanks for being my guest here, and I think the audience has had a lot of fun. As we part, the thing that comes to mind for me that I think would be the most valuable for a guest is we've talked about having the idea of a business, right, and then actually having the guts to go out and get started and start building. And being in the throes of that day in and day out, it's really difficult. It is an absolute emotional roller coaster, right? You often wake up completely depleted from, the day before, the week before, the month before, right? And every single morning you got to talk yourself into getting back in the driver's seat and motivating yourself to go, right? Tell me a little bit. Let's go to Rob. Let's go to Dustin after. How do you do that? What's your secret?
Yeah. Man, it is just a mess, Earl. There is no secret to it. It's like jumping on a skateboard going down a hill, right? Just get on the freaking skateboard, first of all.
Yeah.
Stop planning it, procrastinating it. Get on the skateboard. And once you get on the skateboard and you're going downhill, you're gonna have to make turns, because if you fall, if there's a car there, you're gonna have to dodge it somehow, right? It is exactly like that. On Stop planning it all the time and just go. Do anything and everything to survive the hill.
Yeah.
Do anything and everything not to fall. You will fall. Get back up on the skateboard. Keep going downhill. Not downhill, but that's the metaphor, right?
I gotta say, your island background probably lends to make that a little easier than for Dustin and I. We tend to want to engineer everything before and have the perfect picture of what's going to happen,
right.
and then it comes off the rails, and you're like, what happened, and how do we know this? But I agree. Like you got to give up some control. You got to yes, you have to have a plan, right?
Right.
But the plan's rarely going to go according to plan, and so you just got to be willing to pivot.
Yeah, the plan is to wear a helmet and some elbow pads, right? But after you put those on, it's time to go. Yeah. So for me and for this journey, picking up Dustin and starting to build our team out along the way, those are obviously planned out. But a lot of people on LinkedIn, a lot of people that I meet because of my journey have always asked me, "What do I do? What do I do to start?" Just start. Just jump on the skateboard and start. Stop thinking about it and go and start. You'll fail, get back up and keep going.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. Just start.
Yeah, just start.
All right. What about you, Dustin?
Yeah, I was just going to add one of the. So Rob and I both consume a lot of books.
Mhm.
We're always giving each other, every morning we talk before family routines. It's just a quick touch base. Hey, good morning. A couple of things I was thinking about last night. It's like a quick little blurb.
Yeah.
It's like the minutes that will follow the rest of the day. And then, okay, what time's good for you? And then we sync up later once the kids have been to school.
Yeah.
And the book that we've been cranking on the last 2 weeks is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. And it has been almost like 3 or 4 times a day as I'm getting through different chapters, just going back and forth. So my answer is, coming from the revenue life of luxury to startup grind, KPIs are important. What you measure, you do improve. Truth. But at this level, it's not about the outcomes and the goals. It's about the doing and the activities and the trying and the learnings. If you're not doing something to learn and to fail, it's not going to afford your business any type of beneficial outcome for the size of Washie, right? That changes as the business grows. So I think for me, that's the biggest, is you have to really enjoy learning and being humble to go, yeah, that didn't work.
Yeah.
And what I learned in 20 years of SaaS selling and teams and budgets doesn't do much good for Washie, right?
Right.
Different audience. It's a different pipeline altogether.
Isn't that crazy?
And what is good for Rob and Washie is for the jazz pianist to be really good at adapting and learning fast, and to trying something again as the 12-bar blues starts over, which is every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Fantastic. I love the way you wrapped that. That was eloquent. It was artistic, my friend. Going back to the 12-bar blues. Yeah. There's one little piece I just want to focus in on there from your comments, Dustin, then we're going to wrap. But, you said you got to be willing to learn, right? And that's just, the sooner that you can realize as a founder that failure is part of the journey, right? And that you reframe your relationship with failure to be a learning process. It's not failure. We have experiences that work, that are for our enjoyment, and we have experiences that are for our learning, right? And those experiences that are for our learning, the quicker that we learn, the quicker that we commit to learn from those, right? The more successful you'll be, and the quicker you'll be successful. The best organizations in the world learn. They learn fast, and they have a commitment to learning, I should say, and they use those learnings to pivot, to grow, to adapt, to iterate on their success, right? And that's been a part of our journey. At Nexus, we've hit various different inflection points throughout our journey. Everybody thinks it's this, up and to the right, just a solid straight line, but it's not. You hit these peaks, and then you have these big slumps, these valleys, and you have to learn in those valleys, right? What's not working? Why is it not working? What do we have to iterate? What's changed in the market? What's changed with our clients? What's changed with our people? What's changed with our process? All that kind of stuff. So I love that. Thanks for honing in on that, Dustin. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here on Tech Beat. This has been an awesome hour. I appreciate you sharing your infectious energy, your learnings. Valuable hour for everybody involved, including myself. Just a reminder, guest coming up next, let's see, the 31st, next Wednesday, I believe it is. Ethan Parker from Giddy and I will be broadcasting live from Cryptopia. June 8th, Monty Deer, the CEO of Kizik. We'll have Johnny Hanna, Derek Miner, Greg Trimble from Lemonade Stand, Paul Shin, Andrea Guthrie from Kiln, Lance Allred, who are all coming up over the next few months. So keep an eye out for those episodes and those announcements. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Tech Beat for this hour. We'll talk to you later.